Titanic II is a proposed ocean liner, to be built as a look-alike of the Olympic-class RMS Titanic. The new ship, if ever built, would have gross tonnage of 56,000 while original ship measured about 46,000 gross register tons. The project was announced by Australian billionaire Clive Palmer in April 2012, as the flagship of a proposed cruise company Blue Star Line. The intended launch date was originally set in 2016, with the ship sailing from Southampton to New York within the same year. However, there is increasing uncertainty over the future of the project, with latest claims placing the launch in 2018, and a long postponed and currently indefinite date for the start of construction. History, previous projects. The concept of a replica of the Titanic has been explored several times, especially following the resurgence of interest following the release of the film Titanic in 1997. The most widely publicized project was that of South African businessman Selgus. The South African project began in 1998, and was one of the subjects of an article in Popular Mechanics magazine in September of that year. The article discussed the changes to the original design required to produce a safe and economically viable ship, including a welded rather than riveted hull, diesel-electric propulsion in place of steam engines, and a bulbous bow. The article concluded that although the various Titanic revival projects would cost $400 €600 million, they could be economically viable. Although he originally intended to construct the ship in Durban, Gus presented his £500 million proposal to Belfast City Council in June 2000. He commissioned Olsen Designs to design the ship, advised by Harland and Wolff Technical Services who produced a feasibility study, and Corcott Anderson to design the interior. In November 2000, he began his attempts to raise capital, including through government grants and a stock market flotation. After signing an agreement with a Monaco-based investment banking company, Gus claimed that construction would begin at Harland and Wolff within 9 months. The design changed repeatedly, with claims emerging of the world's largest liner with capacity for 2,600 passengers, and increasingly divergent plans for a heliport, swimming pools and discos eventually being released. In 2006, after repeatedly failing to secure investment, the project was abandoned. Design stage. Clive Palmer first announced the project in a press conference on April 30, 2012, following the signature of a Memorandum of Understanding with state-owned Chinese shipyard CSC Jinling 10 days before. On June 19, it was announced that Finnish naval architecture firm Deal Limited had been commissioned to undertake the design of the ship, and on July 17 a preliminary general arrangement was published. In October 2012, Blue Star Lines announced that Titanic expert Steve Hall had been appointed as design consultant and historian for the project, and that Titanic interiors expert Daniel Calistona had been appointed as interior design consultant and historian. Hall and Calistona had previously co-authored books such as Titanic, The Ship Magnificent and Titanic in Photographs, and gave a technical presentation at the unveiling of the designs in New York, as well as at the dinner in London. Later that month, it was announced that an advisory board would be formed to provide suggestions and recommendations to Blue Star Line to ensure the Titanic II appropriately and respectfully pays homage to Titanic, her crew and passengers. Terry Ismay, the great-great-nephew of White Star Line chairman and Titanic survivor J. Bruce Ismay, will be a member of the board, as well as Helen Bean Zeiger, great-granddaughter of Titanic survivor Margaret Molly Brown. The design for the Titanic II was unveiled at worldwide launch events in Macau, New York, Halifax, London and Southampton. The gala event in New York was the official global launch and was held aboard the USS Intrepid in New York City on February 26, 2013. The gala dinner in London was held at the Natural History Museum on March 2, and was accompanied by a display of items salvaged from the Titanic. There was also a breakfast held in Southampton on March 13. On April 16, 2014, it was announced that Deal had been contracted for the project development phase, and will be responsible for coordinating the various parties involved in the project, including the shipyard, architects, interior designers and operations managers. The feasibility study is complete, and the project development phase is ongoing. The signature of a contract and keel laying is expected in March 2014. Further contracts and agreements relating to the design and construction were announced later in 2013. The project development contract to Deal Tameron Limited, the appointment of E-Ships Leisure as ship management services partner, and of Tilburg Design as provider of architectural and interior design services. On July 17, 2013, Blue Star Line announced that the classification society Lloyd's Register has joined the Titanic II project. The work carried by Lloyd's will make sure that the ship's design is compliant with the current SOLAS regulations. Model testing using the 9.3-meter wooden model was undertaken in September 2013 at the Hamburger Schiffbau Versuchsanstalt. Resistance and powering tests were carried out in a 300-meter towing tank. In an interview in February 2014, Palmer claimed that keel laying would take place in September 2014. He cautioned that the project was a big job, that the original Titanic took 7 years to build while they have been working for only 2.5, and said that he would have liked to start sooner but wanted to make sure we don't make any mistakes. He claimed that a selection of cabins were being constructed on land for approval, and that this would be completed by July 2014. Design and construction: the gross tonnage of the replica will be 56,000 GT, considerably more than that of the original. Comparison with the original RMS Titanic: the ship has been designed to be as similar in internal and external appearance to the Titanic as possible. However, modern safety regulations and economic considerations will dictate several major changes to the design, including greater beam for enhanced stability, welded, not riveted, hull, reduced draft, bulbous bow for higher fuel efficiency, although moderately sized compared to modern ships. Stabilizers to reduce roll, diesel-electric propulsion system with 4 diesel generating sets providing power for 3 azimuth thrusters to replace the original coal-fired boilers, steam engines and steam turbine, as well as the rudder. Also, the ship will have 2 bow thrusters. An additional safety deck between C and D decks for modern lifeboats and marine evacuation systems, with the boat deck housing replicas of the original lifeboats. Space for the deck has been made by lowering decks D and below by 2.8 meters, and for the taller center section of the safety deck, which houses the lifeboats, by raising the superstructure by 1.3 meters. In spite of the reduced draft, space has been made for the lowered decks by removing the orlop deck, which mainly housed the boilers. New escape staircases in addition to the original staircases, housed in the redundant boiler exhaust uptakes. Observation decks in the redundant first 2 funnels, which will have, according to Deal Tameron, tinted window coverings to blend in with the funnel's color, intended to be as close as possible to the original White Star buff. No shear or camber, unlike the original. Pronounced shear was a cosmetic feature of ocean liners, intended to add a graceful appearance to the ship, but made construction more difficult and therefore costly. Renderings released in February 2013 show an upwards rake added to C deck at the bow and stern to give a superficial appearance of shear, although an inauthentic wedge-shaped gap has had to be added between C and D decks in these areas to produce this effect. A higher bridge relative to the bow, as the superstructure has been raised by 1.3 meters by the center section of the safety deck, and also by the removal of the shear. This negates the requirement on the original Titanic for lookouts. An overall increase in the height of the ship above the waterline. However, the total height of the ship from the keel to funnels will be the same as the original, at 175 ft. Video of water tank testing in 2013 indicate that the stern lines of Titanic II bears little resemblance to Titanic's 1912-era counterstern. Power plant and propulsion: for economic reasons, the steam engines and coal-fired boilers of the original Titanic have been replaced with a modern diesel-electric propulsion system. The space which housed the boilers will be used for crew quarters and ship systems. Power will be produced by 4-watt current CRTSILA 46 current CF medium-speed 4-stroke diesel generating sets. 2 12-cylinder 12V46F engines producing 14,400 kilowatts each, and 2 8-cylinder 8L46F engines producing 9,600 kilowatts each, running on heavy fuel oil and marine gas oil. Propulsion will be by 3 azimuth thrusters, which will also be used for maneuvering, while the replica of the rudder of the Titanic II is purely cosmetic, and will not extend substantially below the waterline. The positioning of the azimuth thrusters has necessitated the stern being made substantially more blunt than the original. Interior: the interior of the ship is intended to be as similar as possible to the original. Tillberg Design of Sweden has been contracted to produce drawings replicating Titanic's original interiors. However, the original wooden paneling does not conform to modern fire regulations, so as in Queen Elizabeth II, veneers will have to be used. Plans show a layout broadly similar to the original, but with the third-class cabins modernized, and consideration being given to en-suite cabins throughout the ship. The room freed up by eliminating the steam boilers of the original ship will be used for crew quarters and various services. Criticism: if built, the Titanic II would represent the first major passenger vessel constructed in China, a country with much more experience of building cargo ships than cruise ships, and a significant investment would be required to ensure it meets the much more stringent safety requirements for passenger vessels. The Chinese state-owned CSC Jinling shipyard has never built a large passenger vessel. In addition, it has no dry dock, instead using side launching from a 200 am slipway. The 269 am Titanic II would be the largest side-launched vessel in history by a huge margin, and would require a significant extension to the shipyard's facilities. Representatives from the shipyard have questioned whether the ship can be completed by 2016, and emphasized that no contract has yet been signed. Clive Palmer has been described as an eccentric billionaire with a reputation for bizarre publicity stunts, such as the attempt to create a massive Jurassic Park-style dinosaur theme park at his golf resort. It has also been noted that the publicity surrounding the Titanic II coincided with Palmer's announcement of his entry into Australian federal politics, which was made immediately following the Titanic II conference. Palmer has previously claimed that he was the target of a conspiracy involving Barack Obama, the CIA, the Rockefeller Foundation and Greenpeace, who he believed were attempting to close down his mining operation. In 2010, Palmer started a company called Zeppelin International, with the intention of making a commercially viable Zeppelin. After the plan came to nothing, it was ridiculed as the bizarre move of the year by Australian business website Smart Company. He has gained a reputation in Australia for floating ambitious and unusual business ideas which he fails to see through, and the Titanic II has been described as a classic Clive Palmer announcement. The idea of a commercialized replica of the Titanic has itself been criticized, being described as insensitive, and a mockery of the memory of those who died. Cunard Line, which merged with the White Star Line, stated that they have always been very mindful and very respectful of such a tragic event, and don't think that building a replica or a two is appropriate. Future: in June 2013, it was reported that Clive Palmer may be experiencing financial difficulties, and that his two most prominent businesses were running at a loss. This followed the leaking of a letter where he asked a Chinese business partner for a $200 million AUD payment. His net worth was believed to have fallen by $1.6 billion AUD in 2013. When the project was first announced in 2012, Palmer claimed that the start of construction would begin before the end of the year, with a 2016 launch. Following the launch events in 2013, he then claimed that construction would begin within a few weeks, with launch and maiden voyage still listed as 2016. In an August 2013 interview, Palmer however indicated that construction would not begin until March 2014, while still citing 2016 as the intended completion date. In the event, there were no news of either steel cutting or actual construction taking place in March 2014. More recent claims placed the cutting of first steel in late 2014, with launch delayed by 2 years to 2018. An Asia Cruise News article in March 2014 claimed that the project was a bit frozen and that Palmer was thought to be reconsidering the project after failing to secure sponsorship or find a partner at a Chinese shipyard. He was also said to have been disappointed by the quotes to build in China in terms of both delivery time and price. In response, Blue Star Line reiterated the claim that the project was on track. It was reported in late March 2014 that the project was unlikely to go ahead, and that the Chinese had lost interest in the project. CSC Jinling responded by saying that it would be difficult for us to build the Titanic II, but we have confidence to build it. Blue Star Line reiterated claims that the keel would be laid in Q3 2014. In May 2014, Blue Star Line and designers Jill Tameron signed a memorandum of understanding with Chinese company AVIC, which owns Jill Tameron, to promote the project within China, and to attempt to secure sponsors. It was reported that the first project development phase is complete, and that the evaluation and the project master plan development is ongoing. Notes. References. External links: Titanic-AI.com, Blue Star Line.